Yumi Kurosawa and Rob the drummer, everyone. Thank you very much for those beautiful performances. We started Etudes Opus 10 with back-to-back performances to illustrate in the arts, as in business, new horizons come with surprises. In American-born Rob's case, it's about seeing new opportunities engendered by state-of-the-art technology, such as what you don't see is now apparently what you get. Rob's an established figure in national drum circles, and his activities include playing for and recording with all kinds of jazz and pop groups, as well as teaching aspiring drummers. Equally important, his touring shows as Rob the drummer reach out to kids prone to substance abuse, illustrating in compelling terms that involvement in something like music can enable you to get high naturally, so to speak. He's been a featured artist for White House initiatives, World Cup soccer ceremonies, and a list too long to share here. Japanese-born Yumi Kurosawa is sailing beyond the horizon of centuries-old instrumental traditions to a world her own composition. Born and raised in Japan, she started playing the koto at age 3. Based in New York City since 2002, she made her Carnegie Hall debut in 2006. Commissioned by both the Houston Ballet and the Asia Society in New York as soloist and composer, she's collaborated with dancers whose other gigs have been with people you might have heard of, like Beyonce. Lauded in the New York Times, she continues to perform at world-renowned New York City venues, including the Blue Note, the Apollo Theater, and others. Let's give them another round of applause. Rob, if you could join us on stage. Yumi, if you could join me over here for a moment. Great.
Great.
And by the way, Rob, it's great to have you back. So you're one of those artists we've been with us probably 4 times now,
yes,
I would guess.
I think so.
I would guess, and we're always eager for another visit. So we all joke about the wannabe rock stars with the air guitars or the air drums, but what the heck was that?
This is a very interesting concept. This is aero drums, the best drums you've never seen. And it was basically 2 guys that were going to college, and one of them was dealing with real-time motion tracking, and the other one was just a drummer, but he didn't have room for drums in his hotel room or his dorm room.
Really? So there was a constraint that compelled them to say, hey, why don't we come up with drums that don't need any space?
Yeah, and now to get to this level where it can track, it was tracking the sensors in my sticks and 2 of them that were on my feet. And for them to be able to track the latency and the speed and so forth, very interesting. And it was perfect for me because wherever my background is in motivational education. So whether it was on Sesame Street or whether it's in a school system or whatever, the kids that I'm showing, when I start playing, there are always a series of kids going,
yeah,
you know,
right,
and they pick it up. And now to have that fantasy and that imagination moment and to be able to have actual sounds coming from that, that's remarkable.
Now, you explained to me earlier when we were discussing this that there's still something missing in the experience. What is that?
Well, as far as the depth of your being able to be, you're not getting the tactile. This is really very difficult to do because on a regular drum, you have the bounce. You have something to hit, and there is a response. In this case, you have to have the roll in your hands. You have to not only do the downstroke, but you have to do the upstroke too, which is what's so very difficult about it. You've got to be able to roll on anything.
Well, we talked about it's possible using haptics technology to create that sensation of the roll, of the tension, of the contact.
Yeah.
So I bet that's where it goes next.
Well, that would be interesting. The ideal will be when we'll put on a headset and we will think drums and it will play.
Yeah.
And that will be it.
And that will be the bane of parents worldwide. Great. Thanks so much, Rob. Great to have you back.
Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you.
And Yumi, so that was a beautiful performance. I've seen, heard some koto music in the past, but I've never actually seen an instrument up close. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with the koto, and it's really a stunning instrument. Can you tell us a little bit about the frame itself? I thought it was actually the bark on a log, but you said that's not the case.
It's a 2 pieces wood and Polonium wood, and it's a hollow instrument.
Yeah, so the tradition of the instrument is deep and profound, centuries old. What inspired you to bring this instrument into contemporary space to compose the kind of music you're composing?
Yeah, reason why I moved to New York was I wanted to compound.
What do you mean, compound?
I mean, I wanted to mingle with other cultures and sound and arts.
Yeah, and bring that to what you do.
Yes.
So what would you say was the most difficult in your transition from, because you were trained as a classical, traditional koto player. What was the most challenging in making this very significant transition?
Because I'm from Japanese traditional music field, which means I was so scared to compose new things, very beginning. It's a culture and it's in my nature. But I've been developing my way.
Well, you've certainly been developing your way, and I suspect that other thing, this art you're creating, is even more in your nature.
Like example, I'm working with filmmaker Dev Benegal right now and using innovative technologies to create new dialogues.
Great. Yumi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Stunning. Thank you to both of you. Great. Great. So why are we all here? And we appreciate that you are. For those of you who have just joined us, and some of you have joined from Expo, our great partners at Expo Chicago, all of our Twinians who are here from 25 countries will have the opportunity to visit Expo Chicago tomorrow afternoon, the launch of one of the great contemporary art shows in the world. And those of you who've just joined us, you've joined a special moment and a special evening, something that happens for us once a year. The World Innovation Network, or TWIN, is a group of people from over now 30 countries. We do a variety of smaller things all around the world, expeditions to places like Ireland, Bhutan, Panama, Israel. Many of the people in the room today have gone with us or have come as a result of the reaching out that we've done. For instance, earlier today we heard from the former Prime Minister of Finland, Esko Aho, who was here because just recently Karina Koskinen-Alusta and Juhani Talvani took us to Finland and opened their doors and their hearts. And we do this around the world. At the World Innovation Network, we ensure we have people from business, government, nonprofit, the arts, academia, defense. We ensure we have representatives from all 6 inhabited continents. And by the way, at TWIN, as our Twinians know, we actually have representatives from all 7 continents, Rob Swan and his son Barney, who have, believe it or not, walked to the South Pole from the border of Antarctica. Has anyone else tried that? Absolutely idiotic, but we're so happy they did it. And tomorrow, we'll be joined by Bob Richards, the founder of Moon Express. Bob refers to the moon as the 8th continent. The reason we're all together is, sure, to learn, to explore, but more than anything else, to build trust, to build community, to build connections. We like to say at TWIN, if you always look in the same places, you're liable to find the same answer. Never leave serendipity to chance. And we thank you for being here with us this evening. Let's see if we can make some of this serendipity happen. Meanwhile, in the back, you're seeing throughout the performance a variety of images. These images were selected by, curated by our good friend Sonia Komen-Ernstoff. Sonia is a fellow at the Smithsonian Institution, and some of you might be suspicious that the last name suggests that she is married to our creative director, Jeffrey Ernstoff, whom you'll meet in a moment. In fact, all of us are amazed that this wonderful woman is married to my good friend, Jeffrey Ernstoff. Now, with that, I would love to introduce you to my good friend, Jeffrey Ernstoff, who's seething at me from backstage. Now, the Twins' creative director, he writes, directs, performs in the show each year. We collaborate quite a bit, but this is his baby. Member of the Writers Guild of America, Masters in Arts Programming from Harvard, a former fellow of the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, 10 years as creative director for Radio City Music Hall, 5 Super Bowl halftime shows, 3 Olympic ceremonies, Fortune Global Forums in US, India, China, South Africa, a solo show that's quite peculiar called Exactly 87 Minutes with an Unstable American Musician, and you'll see what we mean in a minute. My colleague, friend, and maestro, Jeffrey Ernstoff. I see you went all out with wardrobe this evening.
Yes, I did.
Is that
yes,
really?
I did.
Great.
Thank you, Rob, for that very beautiful introduction, which I wrote. And let's get right to the music, shall we? The drummer you see over there is my friend Sipo Kunini. Kunini, actually Kunene. I've learned to pronounce it 3 different ways. It is Kunene. And we've been playing music together for decades. I get a call from Sipo. Hey, man, you got to come down to the Blue Note in New York and catch this cat playing the keyboards. He's unbelievable. And that is how I became acquainted with Matthew Whitaker. Now, Matthew has performed at venues including Carnegie Hall, the Kennedy Center, Lincoln Center, and, of course, the Apollo Theater. He's toured Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Now, on his 3rd birthday, he played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on a toy Yamaha keyboard that he received as a birthday present. He heard the song and he played it by ear. So he began taking piano lessons when he was 5. At age 9, he earned the support of the Jazz Foundation of America, and as a teenager, he attended Manhattan School of Music's pre-college jazz program. With perfect pitch, by the way, he learned to play the piano mainly by listening, and then he later studied at the Harlem School of the Arts. So ladies and gentlemen, with Sifo Kunene on drums, Ted Morcaldi on bass guitar, the Matthew Whitaker Trio. Ted, that was great. Thanks, man. Matthew, beautiful. Sounds great. Matthew, Sipo, and Ted. So Matthew, you're just a tad younger than me. Yeah, just a tad. How old are you?
I am 17 years old. I'm 17.
We all remember 17, don't we? You can just hang on to that, Matthew. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here's my question,
my turn.
my first question.
Okay.
I'm sure you had some young experiences that exposed you to jazz, but what really captured your heart about it?
For when I was 7 years old, I was in the car with my dad, and he played jazz for me for the first time on the radio. And ever since then, it's been my favorite genre ever to play and listen to. I do play other styles. I love R&B, gospel, classical, but there's just something about jazz that's different. Because jazz, yes, like for certain songs, it has structures. You got the A section and you got the B section, but also jazz allows you to be you basically, and you have the freedom to solo. Because like if you hear in Got You Now, which is what I just played, there's a part where I did, right, and I was just soloing over that part, and I was just doing but whatever you want to do, and jazz allows you to have that freedom, and that's what I love about it.
So I think, once you find some enthusiasm, you're going to be okay. So, our theme for Twin Global is Horizons. You're 17, you're playing solo gigs, you got a trio playing your own arrangements. When you think about your progress and your passions, what do you see on your musical horizon?
Well, when I get older, I want to...
and you will get older.
Yeah. I want to be a music director, or MD for short. I also want to do producing as well. I also want to do film scoring, and just continue to grow musically and get better, and learn other genres and try to incorporate, because I love incorporating other genres into jazz. Or like whatever genre I'm playing, I just love fusing different genres into one big genre.
And I think Matthew used the magic word, which is fusing, and of course fusion music really sort of started coming into its own maybe 25 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But we're sort of in this, as Leonard B. Meyer, a brilliant musicologist and theoretician, said, he used the phrase fluctuating stasis. And that's really where we're at and have been at for a long time. So certain genres and types of music assert themselves more prominently than others, but it's not as though new stuff is being created. What's new is the extent to which these genres are combined and cross-referenced in any given piece. So, Matthew, having said that, can you tell us a little bit about the next piece that you're going to play for us in terms of its rhythmic variations and so on?
Yeah, this next piece I'm going to play for you guys is a song that I wrote, and it's called Emotions. And basically, so I go to a music store in New York, the Lighthouse Music Store for the Blind and the Visually Impaired. And a few months ago, they had their concert at the Metropolitan Museum. And the theme of the show was Rhythm of Life, and they wanted me to compose a song. And this song has a lot of different time signatures in it, and it's very crazy. But it's called Emotions. And the song we played just now was a song called Got You Now, which also had a few different time signatures going on inside there.
Great, thank you. I'll take the mic from you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think just in this next tune and their final tune, as Matthew said, there's going to be a lot of changing of meters and so on, and time signatures, 3/4 and 2/4 and all that sort of stuff. And in our lives, we're constantly adjusting not only the tempo at which we move, but the meter, the feel, the groove that we're in. So here, in a metaphoric sense, is a representation of the necessity to be able to function not only at different speeds, but also in different grooves. And I'm sure you all have that in your business circles one way or the other. So with that, playing Matthew Whitaker's own composition, Emotions, please, the Matthew Whitaker Trio.
Matthew Whitaker Trio. I suspect you are going to hear more from them in the future. Woo! Wow. Wow. Jazz allows me to be free. Jazz just allowed us to be free. If you didn't feel that, that's your fault, not his. Holy moly. So, quick thank you to so many people who've helped make Twin Global work over the years, and certainly this year. Exelon, Willis Towers Watson, Nokia Bell Labs, my good friends, colleagues, partners at Clario, all of the sponsors you see here, Zurich, IBM, Metropolitan Capital, Bosch, Scott and Margie Philstrip are co-founders from 2003 of this organization with us. Northern Trust, our great partners, the Council on Global Affairs Expo I mentioned, the Chicago Network Development Partner Institute, Northwestern Farley Center, and a very long list of our team sponsors. These are all organizations that from around the world have sent 2 or 3 of their members to be with us for these few days. We really can't do it without you. In fact, we do it for you. We do it with you. A quick note about this Etudes thing. It's an etude, but it's a performance. It's an informance. It's an education. It's an exercise, not for the performers, which typically an etude is an exercise for a performer. It's an etude for the audience with the performers. And this is one of the great special things about this program. And talking about special programs, I want to bring my good friend Jeffrey Ernstoff back to the stage to talk a little bit with me about this 10th anniversary. Ernie and I thought it would be a good idea to chat a bit about reflections on the last 10 years of doing this thing. Can you believe it's been 10 years?
Can you believe my wife married me?
Yeah, no, we still can't. Yeah. We think there's some sort of backstage deal there that you guys made, but look, you're a much better man since, I'll tell you that. So
had a long way to go. Yeah.
Jeffrey, you've done these kinds of things for decades. I mean, really big shows. You worked with Michael Jackson in the halftime show. You work with a whole lot of people that people in this room would recognize. But why do you do this? I mean, there are a lot of other things you could do than spend time here with us.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, Super Bowl halftimes and Olympic ceremonies and things like that, they're really fun. And, you know, they're a challenge and all that sort of stuff. But they're entertainment. Even the Olympic ceremonies, which are purposeful, nonetheless are entertainment. The people that come here, and the reason that I dig kin, is because people are here to learn, you know? And they're here to learn, you know, not just about how to make themselves better, but also the byproduct of making themselves better, which is to make their company better, their enterprise better, and to make the world a better place. And it's not that often that musicians get a chance to be in an environment where learning is really the priority there. And sure, you
learning with the audience.
Yes, and so it's just wonderful to be able to select artists that are diverse and represent different cultures, but present them in a way that stimulates the audience into thinking, well, what is it about that person and what they do and what they've innovated that I can take away for myself? And in our first Etudes, now 10 years ago, you know, we brought out a French cellist, Javier Phillips, and he played some Haydn. And you said, well, what's so innovative about that? Well, Haydn was a really big innovator in his day. Yeah. And because of the kind of support that he got, in that case from the Esterházy course, he was able to develop prototypes of chamber groups, like the string quartet, for example. So with the right kind of support and the right kind of insight into the capabilities of any particular instrument and the right people with whom to work, which is what Haydn had. He had the best instrumentalists of his day, he was able to pioneer and innovate all these things. To be able to share that with people who are thinking, you know, and attentive and not texting, you know, is really great.
So what is one thing in this 10-year journey we've had together so far, hopefully the first of many 10-year journeys, what's one thing that's most surprised you about the experience?
The thing that's most surprised me about the experience with members of the Twin, is the thing that pisses me off. Because I didn't expect...
There's no surprise there.
Yeah, right. The thing that, you know, surprised me about this particular group is how frequently I heard the comments after a show like this, well, I'm not a creative person, but you got to get over that. Yeah. You've got to get over, if you think you're not a creative person, you just have to move past that. You are. Can you play a saxophone or a flute or a koto? You know, maybe, maybe not. But that's not the measure of creativity. Artistic creativity is something, and putting together a show like this is something. But it doesn't mean that you're not creative. You're solving problems all the time. You have a vision of something, and then you have to find the means to implement it. You're creative. Don't shortchange yourself.
It's not, here it's... And this is one of the reasons why we do this. This is one of the reasons, obviously it's fun, but you got to get out of your space, and that's why you're here at Twin Global. And one of the things the arts do that nobody else can do is tap that inner self, connect emotionally, not just with yourself, but with other people. It breaks down barriers and enables us to feel and think, inspires us to find ourselves in different ways. And you have really enabled that.
Thank you. What are some of your, what stands out in your mind over these 10 years?
There are many, but one I'll share. At a theater not much about this size, in fact, we had the entire Army Herald Trumpets. You've worked with them a number of times in the past. They're the pinnacle musical group of the U.S. Army. And when you've got an entire complement of 14 brass standing on a stage no bigger than this, playing the entire Olympic fanfare by John Williams, start to finish, you have never heard the Olympic fanfare until you have heard that Olympic fanfare. It was stunning. But you know, the thing that's been most gratifying about this to me, Jeffrey, in addition to our long friendship and how much I learned from you, my daughters are always excited when Mr. Jeffrey comes over to piss them off and, you know, make fun of them. He's been inspiring to them in terms of following their musical hearts. But one thing more than anything else is you've brought so many artists, friends, collaborators. Many of you in the room could name people like Peter Erskine, Janice Siegel from Manhattan Transfer, a long list. You brought them here, and not only do they perform, they say, when can I come back?
And that's because of you.
Yeah.
It's not because of me.
This is
a
special
They know who
gig,
you are and what you're thinking about.
And you brought them, and
Thank
by
you.
the way, Jeffrey, you and I didn't talk about this before, but when we were making this wonderful transition to the Twin, we were the Kellogg Innovation Network before. I'm a professor at Kellogg, for those of you who don't know. We built this at Kellogg. We owe so much to Northwestern University. I've been there since 1987. We have transitioned it out to grow and expand with the blessing of the school, and we're grateful for that. But when we were thinking about this transition, one of the first people I wanted to make sure was on my side was you.
Thank you.
And because of all that you've done, something that it's hard to go to Craigslist to find a Jeffrey Ernstoff. We have a tradition at Twin of co-foundership. I know it's hard to see in here, but how many of you are co-founders of Twin? There are at least 10 in this room right now. And I want to name Jeffrey Ernstoff as a co-founder of the World Innovation Network.
Whoa, thank you. Wow, thanks, man. Thank you. Well done. Thank you very much. Excuse me one sec. Okay. Is there any water? Nope. Thank you.
Yep, that's my job.
Okay. Thank you for that, Rob. Appreciate it. And it is good to see so many friends here. This is the wild card segment of the show, and it is, simply to say, aptly titled. Now, the soprano flute. Light, agile, bright. Okay. So, hello? We on here? The alto flute. A little bit mellower, it's longer, so it's lower. Okay. Now, so we had soprano flute, alto flute. Can anyone guess what this is called? Who said bass flute? Well, actually, no. This is the tailpipe from a 1964 Buick LeSabre, but it's longer, it's lower, kind of haunting. So, what are we going to do with these things? First, we're going to make sure they're stable. Okay. Well, people often ask me, how do some improvising composers do what they do? So for the wildcard segment, I thought I'd take you inside the compositional process and give you just a glimpse of a work in progress using these three flutes. And since we're here at the Museum of Contemporary Art, I chose to approach that with some visual art as inspiration. Could we put up the Calm at Sea painting by Lionel Feininger, please? Can you all see that? Okay. On screen is the painting Calm at Sea by Lionel Feininger, who is my favorite painter of the 20th century. Too many distinctions of his to list here, but I might mention that he was one of the so-called degenerate artists, so described by the Nazis. Now, as a composer, I first had to think about the characteristics of this painting if I wanted to write a piece inspired by it. So first I thought to myself, well, what I see here are heavy structural blocks, and yet they're transparent and translucent. So this painting is heavy and light at the same time. A term often used to describe his work is prismatics. There's a harmony of the color spectrum in there. So, as a composer writing a piece inspired by this painting, I ultimately envision multiple movements, all drawn from a single adaptable idea. And here's the main idea in condensed form. I wanted to establish an overall mood and underpinning. So could we just play that underpinning, please? Okay, thank you. Now, eventually, all the notes in that chord will be played on all three of these flutes, giving it a very airy, transparent quality. The sound you just heard is not flutes. It's a synthesized placeholder for real flutes. But as a composer and a flutist, I already know what that's going to sound like, so I don't have to go into the studio and lay that down. It's already in my head. So that's just a convenient placeholder. If you think it works, great. If not, I'm sorry. The good news is that either way, I get paid. I hope, Rob, okay. On top of that, you're going to hear some sequential overdubbing, some layering, like the painting. First, you'll hear that chord, and it's going to modulate in reference to the various colors of the spectrum. Next, you're going to hear marine bells. Then you're going to hear the bass flute as an undulating support, like water. And then you're going to hear the melody with freedom to improvise. Then simultaneously harmonized elements of the melody overlapping one another as things overlap one another in the painting. And then I will be playing, imagining myself in the painting, moving from boat to boat. I, the player, am in motion. I chose a pleasant melody rather than an austere one. Why? Because these are pleasure craft. That's why. So now the question becomes, which flute plays the melody? Well, the soprano flute, it's a little bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Soprano flute's a little too high and a little too bright. The bass flute is a little too somber, a little too dark. So the alto flute turned out to be just right. Now, what you're about to hear is a condensed sketch. It's not even 2 minutes long. This is not the piece. This is the work in progress. I'm just starting. But eventually, there'll be movements based upon little fragments of what you're about to hear, which is only 2 minutes long. And maybe each movement will be one for each boat. So anyway, here we go. Just a little sketch, the beginning of a piece based upon Calm at Sea by Lionel Feininger. Okay, let's roll the track. So you can just sort of see where that might go. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you again, Jeffrey.
I feel like I'm carrying the Torah. Okay.
I wouldn't know what that is, Jeff. I have no idea. So, in addition to Yumi, to put the global in twin global, we turn to an Irishman now. I've loved Ronan Tynan's work for many years and was surprised when I was visiting the global event Alltech 1 for Alltech Corporation, which is a great food technology, agriculture technology company in Lexington, Kentucky, and Dublin, Ireland. I was speaking for their annual event in a great big arena, the Lexington Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. Actually, Jack Bobo, who's here, was with us as well. Aidan Connolly was with us earlier. He had to go back to Dublin. But I was standing backstage. There's a massive screen, and backstage they're all LEDs. You're seeing flashing lights, but you have no idea what's going on the other side unless you're paying attention to the monitor. And I'm not, because I'm waiting for my segment and thinking about what I'm going to do, and of course ignoring everyone else. And then all of a sudden I hear this voice. And anyone who knows me knows that I pay attention to operatic voices. And I was blown away, and I said, I think that's Ronan Tynan. And lo and behold, it was. Now, I got to tell you, I was super glad I was not the next guy out on stage after that, as you'll see in a second. It was Ronan Tynan and a full orchestra playing an interstitial piece between segments, and this poor colleague from Harvard had to walk out and talk about agriculture technology. So with this, I said, Ronan, would you join us? And he said, sounds cool. His art will speak for itself, but what preceded his vocalizing makes the art even more impressive. Ronan was born in Dublin. At age 20, illness forced him to have both legs amputated below the knee. Within a year, he was winning international competitions in track and field. He represented Ireland in 1984 and 88 in the Summer Paralympics. Between 1981 and 84, he won 18 gold medals from various competitions and set 14 world records. Went on to Trinity College, became a physician, yes, the medical kind, specializing in orthopedic sports injuries, graduating in 1993. If that weren't enough to make us all feel a little bit insecure and incompetent, he was encouraged to study voice by his father, Edmund. He won a series of voice competition awards and joined the Irish Tenors. Remember them, the 3 Irish tenors? A singing trio started in 1998. They've recorded since 5 PBS specials, 8 albums, played for President Ronald Reagan's funeral and George H.W. Bush's 80th birthday party. Accompanied by pianist Bill Lewis, Mr. Ronan Tynan.
Hello. Just a quick little introduction about this song. When Bill and I have been working together for nearly 18 years, Bill said to me one time we were doing something with the US, the Army Forces and the Air Force, and they selected this particular song. I'm sure that we'll go into it afterwards. You'll know what it is when you hear it. When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens magically. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, why can't I? Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Why then, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Just a quick one. Do you think you can put a little more emotion into your performances? Just
Well,
step it up
think-
a bit.
I think you got to be real. When you're on stage, you got to be real. You got to be who you are.
Yeah.
So if I'm phony, they'll know it. If
Yeah.
I'm real, they'll know it.
You got this group. So Ronan, with your background in sports and medicine, you were doing great before. This is a major career. This is a major life change, a commitment. How did that come about?
Well, I was very blessed to have extraordinary parents, and both of them were, they were the yin and the yang. My mother was extremely focused and very much pro-education. So I was a farmer's son, so there was no place on me for the farm. And she was very quick to maintain that idea. My father referred to her as she who must be obeyed, or top management. So you can imagine the dilemma he had.
Yeah.
As I said, working on a farm, it was fantastic because I was always outside and we milked cows and stuff. But when we milked cows, we used to sing to them. And the ladies
Really?
always had a very good milk yield when we sang.
Oh. Did the cows ever sing back?
Well, they didn't soil the place, you know. Because when my brother went up, if he opened his mouth, the whole place was in uproar. So, if you could read into that what happened up there. But, my mother, my father said to me one day, he said, Ro, he said, why don't you do something with a voice? And I said, okay, like what? Like have a couple of lessons. So I did.
And how old were you then?
I was 32.
32.
Yeah.
So your dad's still giving you advice, and
Yes.
you're 32. He's like, hey, doctor isn't good enough. No.
Well, you see, and countering that, my mother believed that I had a vocation, which was to be a doctor, and that singing was an avocation and frivolous. And leave that to those people who enjoy that sort of thing. But you have a vocation and stick with it.
So you're going to perform something else for us this evening, a few more things. The
Sure.
next number, what is it? Why'd you pick it?
Right. The next number, if for all you opera buffs out there, is from the wonderful opera Tosca, and it's written by Puccini. And the beautiful thing is, if you don't or are not familiar with opera, start with Puccini.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
That's true.
this orchestration is so wonderful. And the emotion that creates is fantastic. So if you start there, even if you don't speak Italian or understand it, you can feel what's happening. I've had some real experiences in opera.
What do you mean? Give us an example.
Right. My first role in opera was to play Pinkerton in Madama Butterfly, another beautiful Puccini opera.
Right.
And in that opera, Cho-Cho-san, or Butterfly, at the end of, in Act 3, she has died and she lies center stage. Now, my butterfly was about 5'1" and 120 pounds. You're standing with 260 pounds of raw Irish beef. Little clumsy, might I add.
It's what's for dinner.
It is what's
Yeah.
for dinner. So anyway, so in the final act, I'm to come in from upstage to center stage to caress her. But like all Irish people, I was too involved with where we were going after the opera. And I was talking to the chorus. And then the stage manager put on his microphone inside to us and he said, Tynan, you're on. So I about turned and did Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
I started to run. Now, as I approached from upstage to center, there was a small little lip on the
no.
stage which I hadn't seen. I didn't caress her. I landed on her. But the best part to this is when I said, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh. And then the stage manager's mic was open to the 3,000 people in the opera, and he said, well, if she's not dead, she is now.
So you turned Madame Butterfly into Beauty and the Beast.
I did. I did.
Great.
I did indeed.
So why'd you pick this piece? Because this is where people can start to appreciate the operatic arts.
Well, I've learned that oftentimes, in particularly my situation, I'm better off left alone because I have a habit of falling. And this is a great aria because actually he dies. He gets shot in the back, and there's a little end to this. Normally the tenors will fall down, right? And there's a mattress there to grab you.
Right.
Well, in my case, I got shot and fell down, but my leg stayed on.
Oh.
Yeah, one leg stayed up.
Let's not redo that one this evening.
No, but one guy shouted, he died with his boot on.
With that, Ronan Tynan.
Sure. Thank you. I'll just get a little water. It's a little dry. Thanks, Bill. This is Bill Lewis, by the way. We've been working together for 18 years. Lucevan le stelle, io lazzava la terra, stride all'uscio dell'orto, io non soffiara sorrena molena, entrava e le fra le crante mi cadea fra le braccia. O dolci bacio, languide carezze, mentre io fremente le belle forme di cieli ai veli, anni per sempre sogno mio d'amore, l'orrei fuggita e muoio disperato, e muoio disperato, e non amata mai tanto la vita, tanto la vita.
So thanks, Ronan and Bill. That was great. But given this is Twin Global and our long relationship with Ireland in this group, we thought we'd prevail upon Ronan to sing some Irish pieces, some native Irish music, loved around the world. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, there was a Chicago police captain 100 years ago here in Chicago who spent years of his life traveling around Ireland to collect all of the native songs and catalog them and record them, which apparently had not been done to that point. So there's a very long relationship, a deep one, between Ireland and Chicago. So we've brought in one of those great trios here in the area, Katie Grennan on fiddle, Jimmy Moore on guitar, John Williams on button accordion. They're going to perform two selections for us. First, Will You Go, Lassie Go, followed by Parting Glass. Following that, I'm going to ask Ernstoff and the entire cast to join us on stage for company bow. And following that, we'll see you at a reception around this beautiful building, the Museum of Contemporary Art, in which the whole museum will be open. Don't take your drinks outside of the main hall. The whole museum will be open for our pleasure until 11:30 p.m. So Please join us. All of our guests are welcome to join us. Feel free to explore. And now, for the two-part grand finale to Etudes Opus 10, the all-star Irish trio, and Mr. Ronan Tynan. Take it away.
Oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme flows around the blooming heather. When you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. When you go, lassie, go. I will build myself a tower, and on pure crystal fountain, and on it I will pine all the flowers of the mountain. When you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Oh, when you go, lassie, go. If my true love she were gone, I would surely find another to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Oh, when you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. When you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. When you go, lassie, It's amazing what fantastic musicians can do. I met these three amazing traditional musicians 3 hours ago. Look what we can do. You'd swear we've been together all our lives. That's what happens when you're Irish. You just fit in. John, James, and Katie. Thank you. And of course, Billy. So the final song is a song that many Irish love to do, and it's called The Parting Glass. It wishes you well, and enjoy the drink that follows. Of all the money that here I spent it in good company, and all the harm that here I done, alas, it was to none but me, and all I have done for want of wit to make since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I